Hey everybody, I'm your host Alad, and today I'm reporting to you live from New York City outside the Yale Club where we have Stop Kavanaugh protesters. So let's go ask some people some questions. Excuse me, sir. I'm making a video on the protest. Can I ask you some questions? Sure. So what are you out here protesting today?
We're protesting Brett Kavanaugh, but also just the whole cesspool that he stands for.
Is there a specific policy that he's made that you guys are...
Policy? Have you been paying attention? So, I mean, he's a liar, okay? And he's a rapist, or an attempted rapist at best. And it's just outrageous that this has been turned into a political circus. This man is unacceptable for the Supreme Court. So and he also represents a whole culture that we're seeing from Donald Trump on down, where women are just not human beings. They're treated as objects and property, and there's no consequences for doing whatever you want with women as long as you're a privileged white male. So that's what we're here protesting.
So Dr. Ford definitely sounded credible when she testified, but a lot of people are worried about the burden of proof. Do you have anything to say about the burden of proof?
Absolutely. So first of all, it's not just that she sounded more credible than him. It's that he never answered direct questions. He was constantly evading. He was constantly changing the subject, answering questions with questions. That's evasive behavior, okay? So that's a credibility issue right there.
It's a credible testimony enough, though, to find
okay, so let me answer your question with a question, which I just said is evasive. If your kids were in a daycare center and the daycare provider were very credibly accused of child abuse, would you wait for them to have their day in court before you decided to get your kids out of there?
So the question is, what is the accusation?
The accusation is that he's guilty of attacking women.
So Dr. Ford talked about how there were two other people at the party, including Kavanaugh, and all three of them said the party didn't have it happen.
That's not what they said, and this is a great example of how Kavanaugh misdirected everyone, because in his answers he continually asserted that very thing, that they said it didn't happen. What they said is, I don't remember that party. That's a very different assertion, and that's, again, is this the kind of guy you want as a judge? A guy who plays those types of games with words?
Well, I think a lot of people are worried about what the burden of proof becomes, because there have been false rape allegations in the past. Just a couple of notable cases, you know, the Duke lacrosse team scandal, and then there's also Mattress Girl, who was around here in New York City. So people are worried that we don't have a lot of proof.
I'm more worried about white privilege and men getting away with this again and again and again. You can come up with examples, but if they want a pro-life judge, let him find one who's not credibly accused of rape. Okay? So if it was we'll challenge that one as well.
But without proof, for the record.
What? No, well, listen, we're not talking about throwing him in jail, although I do think he should be in jail. What we're talking about right now is this the sort of person the Senate should be confirming to the Supreme Court? And I think those allegations are credible enough to make that a very important question. Okay?
Can I ask you one last question?
Sure.
So if Kavanaugh doesn't get on the Supreme Court, he's currently a D.C. Circuit judge. Do you think he should be kicked off of that, be impeached from there?
Be impeached, for sure.
Okay, and just based off of...
to practice law ever again.
Do you want to talk?
No, I don't. That's about all I'll say.
So what are you out here protesting today?
The confirmation, the potential confirmation of Judge Kavanaugh.
So are there any specifics of why you're worried about him being confirmed?
A million of them. I'm pro-choice. I'm progressive. I think unions should have the right to organize. And I think it's terrible for a rapist to be, in a position of power.
So I don't even think any of the accusers called him a rapist. So in general, I think that's an aggressive. I mean, we could look it up.
That's so silly.
They all said sexual assault, so not rape. So.
Other accusers have called him a rapist, and yeah, attempting to rape someone makes you a rapist. That's such a bad faith question. What a ridiculous thing to say.
Okay.
That's your defense?
No, it wasn't.
That's insane.
I'm just saying there's a difference between rape and sexual assault. Would you agree?
Yeah, I guess sexual assault's slightly broader, but what he did was rape. He held a woman down, covered her mouth with, what, the intention to fuck her? That is rape.
So what do you think the burden of proof should be for, like, not allowing judges on...
We should believe women.
All the time? Any burden of proof?
Well, this isn't this is not a criminal trial. This is a Supreme Court justice appointment. The standard of proof is not beyond a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah. So let me ask, if he doesn't get onto the Supreme Court, should we take him off of the D.C. Circuit as well? Because he's a judge on the D.C. Circuit.
Yes, I think he should not be a judge.
So he should be impeached just based off of those allegations, or?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So a lot of people are nervous about fake rape accusations. We had Mattress Girl in New York City.
Not a lot of people are nervous about that.
Oh, okay.
It's a bullshit concern. Something like something like 2% of reported rapes are false. It's just not very common. It's a bullshit, it's mostly misogynists who have that as a worry. It's just not very common, especially if police do basic, their basic due diligence. It just doesn't happen very much.
What does your sign say?
It says believe survivors.
And now, in the sake of fairness, did you have anything else you wanted to say?
No, not really.
So why are you out here protesting today?
Well, like everybody else, as you see the crowd, we against.
Talk to these assholes.
Exactly, he doesn't deserve this position. There are much better.
Them, you're assholes.
Yes. Okay. There are much more experienced and highly experienced people working in the Supreme Court Bar Association. We can nominate someone who is better than him. Why this guy who has a criminal backgrounds and he does not deserve it? How the government getting a clearance with the top secret clearance? Who's gonna represent this high position with the heavy loaded task, and he does not deserve it because it's against the rules like everybody else. Why he will be getting a special treat, getting a waiver? He's supposed to not to getting a waiver.
So you called him a criminal. He hasn't been, found guilty of anything. So aren't we a little bit premature? There's an FBI investigation going on. Why are we already calling him a criminal?
Well, first of all, as you know, everybody else has a background record, the data. So the metadata of his portfolio, you're going to see a lot of complications with random other side escalations that he did it.
So he's guilty based on metadata?
No, not a metadata. I'm talking about his portfolio. That's why we're here. We believe someone who is better than him, and it could be he or she. There are people.
So what does the sign say? We believe survivors. We say no to Kavanaugh. I wanted to ask, is there any burden of proof for believing survivors?
Well, first of all, you got to understand this. As you see the crowd, we have to let the women choose. Let the women choose their abortion rights. It's not like the search or mosque or anybody else or any State Department choose to let them do whatever they want. No, the women has their own right.
What are you out here protesting today?
I'm protesting the ineffective vetting of Kavanaugh, and I don't want him to be confirmed, so I'm out here and making my voice heard.
Do you want to see an FBI investigation happen? If the FBI clears him of any wrongdoing, would you take that at face value?
Probably not. I mean, if it's within the parameters that they've declared within a week's time, how much can you determine about something that happened 30 years ago within a week's time?
Yeah. So, as I'm sure you're a little bit familiar with the process, during the Senate hearings, Senator Feinstein waited until after the hearings to bring up these allegations. And a lot of people are worried that Democrats are obstructionists because of that. So do you have any questions for Feinstein or any comments on her strategy there?
I mean, I have questions too, but at the same time, I want to thank Feinstein for protecting Blasie's anonymity for as long as she requested it. Okay. And I know she tried to circulate that information internally before it was made public.
It's funny you say that because some people say the complete opposite.
Yeah, I mean, I have problems with Feinstein. I have problems with the Democratic majority, just like anybody, but I mean...
Can I ask you about your sign? What's on the other side? So alternative vagina and alternative... Oh, they're both hands. Yeah. Hey, can you get this? Hey, excuse me, can you guys stop harassing us?
I'm not, I'm just asking you.
Oh, okay. My name is Alad, and I mean, that's all you... Hey, excuse me, sir. I'm making a video about the protest. Can I ask you some questions? Sure. So what are you out here protesting today?
Pardon?
What are you out here protesting today?
I'm in solidarity with the other organizations opposed to the nomination of Brett Kavanaugh to the Supreme Court.
Is there a specific reason you're against the nomination of Judge Brett Kavanaugh?
Because he's a reactionary neo-fascist who's against women's rights, and we don't need people like that on the Supreme Court.
So what has Brett Kavanaugh done to make you think that he's a fascist? Because that's a pretty aggressive statement, right?
Well, I mean, if you look at his history, his fealty to the Federalist Society.
So the Federalists is a bunch of fascists? The Federalist Society?
The Federalist Society contains some neo-fascists, some that just want to expand federal power. It's a mix there.
Can I ask you one more question?
Yeah.
So I'm sure you were following the Senate hearings. I want to ask you, why do you think Senator Feinstein waited until after the Senate hearings, the confirmation hearings on Kavanaugh, to bring up the allegations from Dr. Ford?
I think that was an agreement with Dr. Ford at the time, and she used her discretion, and I usually don't support much that she does, but in this case, I would defer to her judgment on that specific issue.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people are questioning them because they think they're being obstructionist, and that's why I feel like a lot of people are questioning these allegations. But anything else you want to say?
No, it's just the most important thing about this is that people are taking independent political action, and they're not following the lead of Democrats or Republicans on the issue. They're acting by themselves, independent of those two bankrupt parties.
Wait, you don't think this is following the Democratic Party? This is taking the Democratic Party's lead, no?
The people here are forcing the Democrats to do things they normally wouldn't want to do. So it's the ground swell is forcing the Democrats, like, you know, the Andrew Cuomo's, to pretend they're progressive.
I'm sorry about that. Anything else you want?
I'm just saying that the rank and file are forcing Democrats to try to pretend they're progressive, like, you know, Andrew Cuomo, who's a center-right Democrat, tries to feign that he's somehow progressive. They feel the heat from the streets.
Actual last question. Who do you dislike more, Andrew or Chris Cuomo?
You mean his father?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't watch CNN because it's just, you know, corporate media propaganda. Like,
at least we could agree on something. Thank you for your time. Or are you just walking by?
Mostly just walking by, but honestly, don't really like this guy from what I've seen. He kind of openly lied on television about, like, how I believe Christine's best friend endorsed him. That was clearly a lie. Like, you can go, like, check it out online. She does not endorse him in any sort of facet. So if he's going to lie in front of everybody, what's he going to do behind closed doors?
Do you know what else that accuser said, though?
I'm sorry?
Do you know what else that the accuser's friend said? So Dr. Ford's friend.
From my understanding, she says I'm totally in league with Dr. Ford.
Yeah, from my recollection, from what I read, she said that the events, that she wasn't there or has no recollection of the events happening.
Sure, but she's
bullshit. Why are you doing this stupid?
Do you want? I'll look it up. Like, what does it need to be? What?
No, that's fine. These are fair questions.
Oh, yeah, that's what I mean. I'll pull it up for you in a minute.
Yeah,
but according,
she believes Dr. Ford openly.
She said that she doesn't have recollection of the events,
Sure.
and I could pull that up.
Sure,
but that's again, that's neither here nor there. What do you think the burden of proof should be to have a person not be a Supreme Court justice nominee?
Well, you don't need burden of proof here because that interview was horrible. That Senate confirmation hearing was a disaster, and that's automatically disqualifying.
How do you want him to behave? Because I know he's getting a lot of pushback. A lot of people were calling him like an angry white male. So how do you want him to like behave to kind of ingratiate himself better with people who don't like him?
I'd prefer that he behave as himself, and I think he did that.
So why are you out here protesting today?
Out here because what's happening in Washington, D.C. is really terrifying, and everything is being divided down party lines in a really, really horrifying way, and I think we're losing a lot of our humanity in our government right now.
So is that because of Brett Kavanaugh? Because he's not even the most conservative judge to be put on the court, you know, in the past couple of years, because we just, you know, we recently...
Do it the way that our government and Congress, specifically the Senate Judiciary Committee, is responding to these charges, or to the allegations right now. Obviously, there's a huge culture around rape culture, etc. This is by no means the beginning or the end of it. But
I wanted to ask one last question. Okay. So Senator Feinstein waited until after the Senate confirmation hearings with Kavanaugh to bring up Dr. Ford's allegations. Why do you think she did that?
She was because Dr. Blasey Ford asked her to remain confidential, and she wanted to honor those wishes.
Yeah, but she didn't.
She did, yeah. The letter was leaked. Dr. Blasey Ford came forward publicly when she agreed to. Dr. Feinstein didn't leak it.
So why didn't they come out with allegations? It could have been anonymous allegations. Why'd they have to come out, you know, with not even the anonymous allegation after the Senate hearings? Because a lot of people are saying Democrats are just obstructionists by bringing it later.
I know, which is kind of ridiculous. The reason why she came out and decided not to be anonymous is because she was getting death threats, and she decided it was her civic duty at that point. She wanted to put her name out there because she figured it was going to be out there anyway. There were already reporters at her house. Nobody knows how they got there, but she wanted to do what was best for the country.
So for the sake of fairness, is there anything else you wanted to say?
We need to get rid of Lindsey Graham, too.
Thank you. Why are you out here protesting today?
I'm outraged at the prospect that the Supreme Court seat stolen from Obama, the Garland seat, has been delayed forever. And then
he filled that one with Gorsuch, but now the new one.
And suddenly it's like an urgent priority to push this one through. There are so many questions that remain. An investigation takes time, and suddenly all the GOP are posturing like what were the words? It's unprecedented. I forgot the word he used. But this is ridiculous. The government's supposed to work. We're supposed to work together. It's not supposed to be special interests and big government.
So let me ask, Republicans were obstructionists, and that through the end of Obama's presidency, which is why Trump got that first nominee in Gorsuch. But are we okay with the Democrats doing the same obstructionist strategy, but now kind of adding this Me Too movement into the mix?
It's not so much about the Me Too movement, and it's a good question, should we be obstructionist? The balance has shifted so wildly in terms of the radical Trump policies. I'm at a loss to think what else we can do.
Because a lot of people think Senator Feinstein's just being an obstructionist because these allegations and more allegations only are coming out after the Senate hearing happened. You know, we could have had an FBI investigation earlier, but Senator Feinstein held it for, I think it was over a month before she told anybody about it. So are we okay with those tactics that she's using? Isn't it obvious that she's kind of an obstructionist?
There was something of a clusterfuck in terms of the information. However, the documents pertaining to Kavanaugh were being held up and being redacted and not being provided to the full committee early on.
I want to say, can I see your sign? What's it say? No justice, no seat. Do you have anything else you want to say in the sakeness of a fair interview?
No, I think resistance is important right now. So let's do this.
Great. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hey everybody, thank you guys so much for watching. Please leave me a comment below. Let me know what you thought about the video. Until next time, guys, stay barely informed.